Namaste children. This is Jyoti Devgan from the SST department and welcome to the second part of the chapter Women Change the World for class 7. Now going to school is an extremely important part of your life, isn't it? As more and more children enter the school every year, we begin to think that it is quite normal for all children to go to school. Today, it is difficult for us to imagine that school and learning could be as out of bounds or not appropriate for some children. Now, what used to happen in the past? Well, the children, they learned the skills at home. For example, pottery, weaving and craft. The role of women, as always, was only supportive. Just because she did not operate the wheel. But who collected mud? Now new ideas and learning emerged. There was opposition from all parts of the society for sending girls to school. As always, women struggled to learn to read and write. Another instance I am going to quote about Pandita Ramabai. She never went to school but learnt to read and write from her parents. She was given the title Pandita because she could read and write Sanskrit, a remarkable achievement as women then were not allowed such knowledge. During that time, they were not allowed to study. She went on to set up a mission in Khedgaon near Pune in 1898, where the widows and poor women were encouraged not only to become literate but to be independent. They were taught a variety of skills, right from carpentry to running a printing press, skills that are not usually taught to girls even today. Now, learning to read and write led some women to question the situation of women in the society. They wrote stories, letters, and autobiographies describing their own experiences of inequality. Now let us all read about the experience of Rash Sundari Devi, who was born in West Bengal around 200 years ago. At the age of 60, she wrote her autobiography in Bangla. Bangla is a language spoken in West Bengal. Her book titled Amar Jeeban is the first known autobiography written by an Indian woman. She was a housewife from a rich landlord's family. At that time, it was believed that if a woman learned to read and write, she would bring back bad luck to her husband and become a widow. Now look at the way they used to tell the females so that they don't study. Despite this, she taught herself how to read and write in secret, well, even after her marriage. After learning the alphabet, Rash Sundari Devi was able to read the Chaitanya Bhagavad. Through her own writing, she also gave the world an opportunity to read about women's lives. In those days, Rash Sundari Devi wrote about her life, everyday life rather, experiences in details. There were days when she did not have a moment's rest, no time even to sit down and eat. Unlike Rash Sundari Devi and Ruqayya Hussain, who were not allowed to learn to read and write, large number of girls attend school in India today. Despite this, there continues to be many girls who leave schools for reasons of poverty, inadequate schooling facilities, and discrimination. Providing equal schooling facilities to children from all communities and class backgrounds, and particularly girls, it continues to be a great challenge in India. Now, taking you to another example of Ruqayya Shekhawat Hussain and her dreams about the Lady Land. Ruqayya Shekhawat Hussain was born into a rich family who owned a lot of land. Though she knew how to read and write Urdu, she was stopped from learning Bangla and English. In those days, English was seen as a language that would expose girls to new ideas which people thought were not correct for women. Therefore, it was mostly boys who were taught English. Now look at the discrimination. Ruqayya learned to read and write Bangla and English with the support of her elder brother and an elder sister. She went on to become a writer. She wrote a remarkable story titled Sultana's Dream in 1905 to practice her English skills when she was merely 25 years old. This story imagined a woman sultana who reaches a place called Ladyland. Now look at the fantasy, look at her imagination. Ladyland is a place where women had the freedom to study, work, and create inventions like controlling rain and from the clouds and flying air cars. In this Ladyland, the men had been sent into seclusion, completely the opposite what is happening to the ladies. Their aggressive guns and other weapons of war defeated by the brain power of women. As Sultana travels in Ladyland with sister Sara, she awakes to realize that she was only dreaming. Now, schooling and education today. Today, both boys and girls attend school in a large number. Yet we see there still remain differences between the education of boys and girls. In India, we have a census, that is the count of population every 10 years, which gives us the count of the people, their age, the schooling, and the work they do. We use this information to measure many things like the number of literate people and the ratio of men and women. According to the census held in 1961, 40% of all boys and men, they were literate. But as compared, the girls' percentage was only 50% of all girls and women. But by God's grace, the condition of girls has improved. Let us take the census of 2011. 82% of all boys and men, they were literate, as compared to 65% of all girls and women. Now, let us see a table that shows the percentage of girls and boys who leave schools from different social groups. Scheduled caste is the official term for Dalits, and scheduled tribe is the official term used for Adivasis. Now, there are basically several reasons why children from Dalit, Adivasi and Muslim communities leave schools. In many parts of the country, especially in the rural areas, there may not even be proper schools, nor teachers who teach them on a regular basis. If a school is not close to people's home and there is no transport like buses, vans, parents may not be willing to send their girls to school. Many families are too poor and unable to bear the cost of educating all their children. Boys, of course, as always, they get preference in this situation. That is why in 2014, the Government of India launched Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao. Now, talking about the women's movement and the various campaigns that are held. Women and girls now have the right to study and go to school. There are other spheres like the legal reform, violence and health, where the situation of women and girls has improved. These changes have not happened automatically. Women individually and collectively have struggled to bring about these changes. This struggle is known as the women's movement. Most of the women, they get together and they go in for campaigning against domestic violence in 2006, 1997 for sexual harassment and 1980 against the dowry deaths. Not only this, in 1980s, for example, women's groups across the country spoke against dowry deaths, cases of young brides being murdered by their in-laws or husbands greedy for more dowry. Women's groups, they spoke out against the failure to bring these cases to justice. They did so by coming onto the streets, approaching the courts, and by sharing information. Finally, this became a public issue in the newspapers and society, and the dowry laws were changed to punish the families who seek dowry. Now, last but not the least, we should not forget the International Women's Day, which is celebrated on 8th of March. Women all over the world, they come together to celebrate and renew their struggles. Now, children, that's all in this chapter. Women change the world.